Ковальск в атаке вдвоем. Венгер Жановский. О, вам привет. В глазах-то потемнело, Сергей Сергеевич?
Spook it! Gotcha. Spooked ya.
This is Sportscentre.
Hey, I'm Marissa Brodon, if you can't tell. I'm going as my girl. Stella! And we'll start on the ice because the Leafs are back home for a Halloween date with the Kings. One of just 2 games on the schedule tonight. And this particular day in Leafs Nation always reminds us of one of our favorite days ever. When Carlton the Bears scared the boys after practice and Auston Matthews absolutely lost it. Okay, so it turns out Auston Matthews is just as jumpy as my producer, Christopher Hine. Roll the tape! Okay, I'm gonna scare Chris Hine.
God damn it.
Oh yeah, I hadn't gotten him good in a while. That felt nice. Even though they dropped their first and last game of the road trip, it really felt the Leafs found their footing on this one. They scored 17 on the trip and allowed only 11. William Nylander continued to tear up the lead, and baby goalie Joseph Woll stayed strong between the pipes. Oh, look at the little baby! And he returns home looking more like the 1A goalie than 1B. Yeah, it's only been 4 games, but he's got a stellar .961 save percentage. And tonight, William Nylander has a chance to make history against the Kings. He started the season red hot with an 8-game point streak, tying the franchise record, and can cement his spot at the top with the longest point streak to start a Leaf season tonight. I am speechless. I am without speech.
I am speechless. I am without speech.
But the Kings team they're playing tonight is off to a solid start to their year too, with a 4-2-2 record, good for 3rd in the Pacific. The action starts a little later to allow for some trick-or-treating time. So coverage for you in the Leafs region starts at 7:30 Eastern on TSN, with puck dropping at 8 Eastern. To the association, and oddly enough, on the NFL's trade deadline, it was the NBA that gave us a blockbuster, as James Harden has finally been dealt, as he gets his wish and is heading to the Clippers. He joins Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and Russell Westbrook as 4 guys who all played their high school basketball in Southern California. The Heat! My God, the Heat!
And the Heat! My God, the Heat!
Philly gets 2 firsts, a pick swap, 2 seconds, and Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, Nick Batum, and KJ Martin. Crazy that the Clips are able to get this done without having to include Terrence Mann. This is now the 4th time James Harden has been traded, which is tied for the most times an MVP has been traded in NBA history, as he joins new teammate Russell Westbrook, Bob McAdoo, and Moses Malone, as the other former MVPs that have been traded 4 times. And speaking of Westbrook, him and Harden are now teammates for the 3rd time, as they both started their careers a year apart in OKC, then to Houston for 2019-20, and now together again in LA. And here's a pretty interesting stat. In Harden, Westbrook, and Paul George, the Clippers now have 3 of the top 6 active players in points scored in terms of those who've never won a title, which kind of oddly says maybe you have the best guys that can't get it done in the playoffs. And when something like this happens, we gotta look at the odds. As before the trade, they were 24-1 and are now 13-1. To the NFL, it's a big day today as it's trade deadline day. And there are some huge names rumored to be on the market, but this is not the NBA or NHL trade deadline, as the NFL's is typically a little more quiet, although last year there were 10 deals on deadline day, with 12 players moving teams. The most action we've seen on a deadline day in the last 30 years. But let's start with the biggest name though, and that is Devonte Adams. He had just 1 reception last night, but with good QB play, probably could have had 2 massive bombs. Because my guy was wide open. Easy to understand why he was so visibly frustrated on the sidelines. Well, the Raiders have had many calls on Adams reportedly, but have said no every time to moving the star receiver. Now, Adam Schefter was on First Take this morning and mentioned he made some calls around the league to see just how realistic a potential Adams trade could be, and his answer was pretty strong.
And the response that I got back to any potential Devonte Adams trade by the 4 o'clock Eastern deadline today was to quote, "Not a chance in hell."
I am not going to hell, and if you think I'm going to hell, you should care I'm going to hell, even though I am not.
I am not going to hell. And if you think I'm going to hell, you should care that I'm going to hell, even though I am not.
Now on to Derrick Henry. Many teams have called looking into him, but any chance of a deal died last night when the Titans chose not to restructure his deal, making his contract much more difficult to move today. So those 2 deals didn't happen, but what did happen today? And our first trade of the day was a big one, as the Commanders sent edge rusher Montez Sweat to the Bears for a 2nd-round pick. Not gonna lie, this one's a little weird to us, as the Bears aren't really a team that's gonna do anything this year. So they must think very highly of Sweat to acquire him for what would be the 3rd pick in the 2nd round. Reminds us of last year where they gave up what it would end up being the 1st pick in the 2nd round for Chase Claypool, who is now on Miami. Get out! Now the Commanders were also rumored to be taking calls on former number 2 overall pick Chase Young. But it's hard to believe that Young would be moved for less draft compensation than Sweat. And that's exactly what happened as he was traded to the Niners, right before the 4 p.m. deadline for a third-round pick. So now one of the league's best defenses adds another pass-rushing weapon. And the deals weren't done there. With Kirk Cousins' season ending early with that torn Achilles, the Vikings needed a new QB and got one today, as Josh Dobbs and a conditional 7th are heading to Minnesota, with a 6th heading back to the Cards. Dobbs has started in 8 games for Arizona this season, throwing 8 tutties with 5 picks. Okay, it's Halloween, as I mentioned, off the top, a day I truly love. Not just because I get to dress up as icons in my life, you know, people who really inspire me, women who just know how to dance. And another reason I love Halloween is that we get to see all the creative costumes from athletes around the sports world. So let's look at some of my favorites, starting with Connor Hellebuck. Alright, Connor Hellebuck going with Taylor Swift, that's the #1 couple's costume of the year, so seeing a few of these isn't that surprising. Okay, Myles Garrett, that's a full commit with the creeper, I love that. Barbara Jett is Ted Lasso, honestly, that's an easy put together, just like the Elaine. He probably has all those things on hand. And Joe Burrow as an alien, he did really fully commit. I feel like he had all those things though, including the helmet. Grady Dick and Scotty Barnes, these costumes are perfect for them. Quentin Byfield also as Frozen. Is this the Taylor Swift Travis Kelce costume of the year for singles? I don't get it. If I have to choose between the two, I can't really. They're both nice boys and they really just make the costume work. It's a tie. We've got a little Harry Potter action in there. You know I love that. Team Ravenclaw all the way. But the sports creativity does not end there. Just look at this jack-o'-lantern. This we had to include, done by my buddy Jeff Emerson. I don't even know how he can carve these pumpkins like this. I don't get it, but it's masterfully done. Well done. And we finish the show like we do every Tuesday in hockey season, and that's with our anytime goal score bet. And typically on a Tuesday we have several games to choose from. But that's not the case for tonight's Halloween slate, as there are only 2 games, the Kings and Leafs and Preds and Canucks. So with only 4 teams to choose from, I really don't feel as much of a homer when I go with Auston Matthews tonight to score at -110 on FanDuel. He has not scored in 2 straight games, so for him that pretty much means he's due. So like last week when Julia gave you a winner with Ovechkin to score because he was due, we're following that same logic with another great goal scorer in Matthews. And you know what? I might be in attendance to see him score this goal. I'll go if I don't have to talk.
I'll go if I don't have to talk.
Well, we got a lot of information on the show today. I didn't mention the bisque, but it's okay. We'll get there next time.
No, I mentioned the bisque.
That's all for news. We're picking around 3 Eastern, no Pacific. Have a good one.